um, 2005 November History Paper 1, 2059. So question number 1, it was in which year Ranjit Singh died? So in which year Ranjit Singh died? That was 1839. Uh, Here you can see it's mentioned later. I will tell you. And who led the group of here 1839? Who led a group of followers in 19th century called Friars Movement. That was Haji Shariatullah. And Haji Shariatullah. And the third next question is, where did Sayyid Ahmad Khan establish a scientific society in 1863? So that is Ghazipur. And next is, so which body did the Mohammedan Defense Association replace in 1893? So that is the Patriotic Alliance. Now, why did Shah Waliullah have such an important influence on the revival of Islam in the subcontinent? Now, about Shah Waliullah. Shah Waliullah had an important influence on the revival of Islam in the subcontinent. His importance and greatness lies in the fact that he was the pioneer and the first important figure to work for the resurgence of Muslims. He was the first to explore identity, explore, identify, and explain the cause of a Muslim decline, and he tried to find remedies and to counteract them. He said that the main cause of the decline of Muslims was that they, Muslims, had left the true teachings of Islam. They said that Muslims were ignorant about the true teachings of Islam and the Holy Quran. For this purpose, he wrote a large number of books and translated the Quran into Persian, the language of educated Muslims during the Mughal times. He made an effort to reform the Muslim society because of many wrong and un-Islamic ideas and practices had become prevalent among them. He emphasized that division into groups and sects had weakened the Muslims. He tried to bring Shias and Sunnis closer and advised the Sufis and the ulemas to resolve the differences. Shah Waliullah explained the concept and importance of jihad in order to regain political power. He advised Muslim rulers of states to unite and suppress the anti-Islamic forces which were making the life of Muslims difficult in the subcontinent. Thus, the efforts of Shah Waliullah to awaken the Muslim community and to reform their belief and faith was a great achievement. His ideas and efforts encouraged the later reformers like Sayyid Ahmad Shahid, Hadi Shariatullah, and others. The later reform movements were offshoots of Shah Waliullah's work, and therein lies the greatness importance. And therein lies his greatness and importance. And next question, what was that? Yes. Were the weak and greedy characteristics of Aurangzeb's successors the most important reasons for the collapse of the Mughal Empire? Accept your answer. It is correct to say that the most important cause of the decline and downfall of Mughal Empire was the independence and weakness of Aurangzeb's successors. The later Mughal rulers were neither good generals nor good statesmen who could control and effectively administer a large empire. They lacked courage and determination. The nobility was also pleasure loving and complacent as it served a long period of wealth and luxury. Over and above this, the infighting among the princes for the throne continued for some time, which further weakened the kingdom. But the collapse of the Mughal Empire cannot be attributed to only one factor, and there were a combination of factors which led unto the downfall, and each factor had its significant impact. Firstly, Aurangzeb's involvement in the Deccan against the Marathas was so prolonged that the king remained absent from the capital for over 20 years. The Deccan campaign also drained the strength and finances of the kingdom. This shook the foundation of the empire and caused a rapid disintegration. Secondly, the vastness of empire also became a factor in itself. Aurangzeb's empire covered really nearly the whole of the subcontinent. Weakness of administration resulted in the fact that the governors of four of provinces such as Bengal, Deccan, and Oudh became independent, and the Mughal Empire shrank in size and strength. Thirdly, the Mughal army, though large, was weak because of lack of discipline, proper training, and supply and modernization of weapons. Invasions of Nader Shah (1739) and Ahmad Shah Abdali (1761) exposed the weakness of the Mughal rule, and Kabul, Punjab, and Sindh were lost to the Mughals forever. Fourthly, the rise of non-Muslim powers speeded up the crumbling of the Mughal Empire. Marathas gradually rose up in the Deccan, and the Sikhs gained power in the Punjab. More important were the British, who rose up as a very strong force, controlling Bengal and Bihar. The Mughals were no match to these powers. Lastly, lack of modernization was also a big factor. The Mughals did not pay attention to naval power at all. The British had a clear military advantage because of growing industrial strength, new weapons, and superior war techniques. The result was that within 100 years after the death of Aurangzeb, by 1803, the British took over Delhi and replaced Shah Alam under British protection with a pension. Question 2, A. 1. Who captured Gwalior from the British in 1857? What association was formed in 1893? In which town was the 20th session of the Mohammedan Educational Conference held? In which year was the first Khilafat conference held? No, then let's go to these questions. And they are here like, oh my God. Rani Jhansi. Answer to the who captured Gwalior? Of Gwalior was captured 1857. Rani of Jhansi. And Mohammedan Defense Association. What association was formed in 1893? Mohammedan Defense Association. In which town was the 20th session of Mohammedan Educational Conference held? So Dhaka. In which year was the first Khilafat conference held? 1919. B. Why did Pakistan choose Urdu as its national language? This is very popular question and is asked again and again. So Urdu was chosen to be the national language of Pakistan because of its popularity and vastness of literature. It is widely spoken and understood by all Pakistanis. Secondly, after independence, it was found that each province has its own regional language, but no regional language was found fit and suitable to be given the status of national language after independence. Even before partition, Urdu was widely spoken and understood throughout the subcontinent. Urdu had been considered the language of Muslims for 300 years. During the struggle of independence, the political leaders made their speeches in Urdu. Urdu was the medium of teaching in all Muslim religious schools in all parts of the subcontinent. Thus, Urdu language continued to grow in popularity and importance and was classed as one of the important languages of the world. Even before partition, Urdu was the core language at a lower level and also medium of teaching in schools of all provinces of Pakistan except in rural Sindh. Therefore, Urdu was rightly chosen to be the national language of Pakistan soon after the independence. C. And the introduction of social reforms by the British, such as education, caused the War of Independence 1857. Do you agree? Give reasons for your answer. I do not fully agree with the statement that the War of Independence 1857 was caused only as a result of social reforms such as education. It was one of the factors, but there were several other important factors as well. The British had started English education in India after 1835 when Persian was replaced, making English the code and official language. People in India, especially the Muslims, thought that the British wished to westernize them. British education was resented in India, especially co-education and abandonment of Parda was not liked. I do not fully agree with the statement that the War of Independence 1857 was caused only as a result of social reforms such as education. It was one of the factors, but there were several other important factors as well. The British had started the English education in India after 1835 when Persian was replaced, making English the code and official language. People in India, especially and the Muslims, thought that the British wished to westernize them. British education was resented in India, especially co-education, and abandonment of Purdah was not liked. The British were present in India for about 200 years but have kept themselves aloof from the Indians. They behaved arrogantly with Indians, showed an attitude of hatred, thinking themselves to be a superior race with a superior religion. Many British politicians were wrong, and the needs and desires of the Indian people were not kept in mind while making laws because there were no Indian members in Viceroy's Legislative Council. In fact, all settled of people in India were dissatisfied. Peasants had landowners. Peasants and landowners were unhappy because of high taxes, and any farmer who could not pay taxes in time, his land was confiscated and put to auction. Craftsmen were unhappy and because machine-made goods had started coming from England. Many state rulers were unhappy because their states were annexed by the British and on one pretext annexed under the sorry states were annexed by the British on one pretext or the other. A number of states were annexed under the doctrine of lapse. Sindh and Oudh were annexed in spite of treaties between the rulers and the British. Another important factor was then the British Indian Army were dissatisfied. Their salaries were low and there was no promotion on higher ranks for them. Sending regiments overseas was greatly resented by Hindus. Even before 1857, several uprisings had occurred in the British Indian Army but were suppressed. The immediate and the main cause of the War of Independence was the incident of Greased Cartridges, which triggered the uprising at Meerut Cantonment when a regiment of Indian soldiers rebelled. They killed the British officers, marched to Delhi, declared Bahadur Shah II as the Emperor of Hindustan, and the War of Independence started. Therefore, it is not correct to say that only the social reforms and education were responsible for the War of Independence. Question 3. A1. Who chaired the committee set up by the All Parties Conference in 1928 to look at a future Indian constitution? Who could be that? Motilal Nehru. Who was Secretary of State for India in 1928? Sir Lord Birkenhead. Number 3. Who was the Viceroy of India in 1930? Lord Irwin. Number 4. In which year was the Second Round Table Conference held? 1931. Why was the partition of Bengal reversed in 1911? The partition of Bengal 1905, which was done for administrative reasons, was reversed in 1911, mainly on account of strong agitation and protests by the Hindus. The Bengal supported by the Congress. The Hindus continued protest meetings and marches against the partition, saying that the Bengali community has been divided. Boycott of British goods, especially cloth, was started, which was called Swadeshi movement, and it led to riots. This was going to harm the British textile industry. Two assassination attempts were made on the life of the viceroy. Eventually, the British decided to reverse the decision, and the partition of Bengal was cancelled in 1911. Were the Mantamala reforms the most important attempt by either the Muslims, the Hindus, or the British in seeking a solution to the problem in the subcontinent between 1906 and 1920? Accepted your answer. Between 1909 and 1920, important constitutional reforms were Mantamala reforms in 1909, Lucknow Pact 1916, Montague-Chelmsford reforms 1919. The Mantamala reforms 1909 were widely criticized by the Congress, although some steps were taken to give some power to the Indians. The number of members in the central and provincial councils were increased. The reforms granted the right of separate electorate for Muslims, which pleased the Muslim League, but the Congress showed a strong resentment. One Indian member was added into Viceroy's Executive Council and one to each of provincial councils. The Congress condemned the reforms but agreed to work with them. Lucknow Pact 1913, Muslim League added self-rule into its demands. It brought the Congress and Muslim League closer. Mr. Jinnah joined the Muslim League in 1913, and since then he made very strong efforts to bring the two parties closer so that achieving of self-rule may be easier. The annual meetings of Congress and Muslim League were held at Lucknow in 1916, and the leaders of both parties came to some agreement. The Congress accepted the right of separate electorate for Muslims and that one-third seats in the Central Assembly was to be given to Muslims. Both parties demanded that elected members in both central and provincial assembly would be in majority. They also agreed upon autonomy for provinces and on the principle of weightage. In 1909, the Mantamala reforms had promised that more powers will be given to Indians after 10 years. Therefore, in 1919, re- reforms, more concessions were Therefore, in 1919 reforms, more concessions were given. A system of two houses was proposed for the central legislature. Number of members was greatly increased, and elected members were to be in majority. In 1919, reforms also introduced the system of diarchy in the provinces according to age, unimportant or transferred subjects were under the control of Indian ministers, while important or reserved subjects were retained by governors and executive councillors. These reforms disappointed both the Muslim League and the Congress Party because they both hoped for more substantial concessions. The viceroy and the governors had sweeping powers to appoint ministers and to dismiss the assemblies. In short, the Act of 1919 did not do much to solve the problems in the subcontinent. The above discussion leads to the conclusion that the three reforms mentioned above, the Lucknow Pact was the most important because both the Congress and Muslim League were moving in right direction with cooperation and understanding. Had they maintained their cooperation and concessions to each other, the goal of self-rule or independence would have been achieved much earlier. Section 4, A1, who said that Hindustan was for Hindus in 1937. Imagine what was celebrated on 22nd December 1939, Day of Deliverance. What is a Tehsil? The Tehsil is an administrative unit and it is a part of a district. A district may be divided into two, three, or four tehsils for administrative and revenue collection purposes. What was the state capital of Kashmir in 1947? Srinagar. Why was Chaudhry Ramthali an important influence on the struggle for a separate homeland for Muslims? Chaudhry Ramthali was an important influence on the struggle for a separate homeland for Muslims for several reasons. He strongly believed in the two nation theory and had a firm conviction that an independent Muslim homeland was the only solution for the problems in the subcontinent. Secondly, his importance lies in the fact that the coined name Pakistan for the Muslim state which gained much popularity, and he wrote the pamphlet Now or Never in order to explain his message. Thirdly, he founded an association called the Pakistan National Movement in London for this purpose. Chaudhry Ramatali was in London when roundtable conferences were being held. He met Muslim leaders and urged them to press for nothing less than an independent Muslim state. But by that time, Mr. Jinnah and Muslim leaders were of the opinion that the best solution for the Muslims was to try for a loose federation of India with protected rights for Muslims. Thus, Chaudhry Ramthali was ahead of his time. Although he was not involved in the politics of the subcontinent, but the importance of his ideas and efforts cannot be ignored or forgotten. Were the Gandhi-Jinnah talks the most important factor during the 1940s that led to the partition of the subcontinent in 1947? Give reasons for your answers. During the period of 1914 to 1947, the main events in the subcontinent leading to partition were Lahore Resolution, Gandhi-Jinnah talks, Cabinet Mission Plan, Third June Plan. Lahore Resolution, March 1940, clearly demanded that contiguous contiguous Muslim majority provinces in the northwest and east of India should be grouped together and to form an independent Muslim state. Both the Hindus and the British opposed the partition of the subcontinent, but this resolution brought the Muslims of India under one banner, and Pakistan became the objective ambition and the goal of the Muslim nation. The resolution increased the importance and popularity of Muslim League. It also greatly added unto the credibility and importance of Mr. Jinnah in Indian politics. Muslim League became the true representative of the Muslims of India, and Jinnah was the sole spokesman. Surprisingly, a great support came from the Muslims of minority provinces. Gandhi Jinnah talks. Gandhi Jinnah talks were held in September 1944 at Bombay. Mr. Jinnah's main arguments were all Indians are one nation, because the Muslims are one converts, and the Muslims are only converts. And therefore, demand of a separate homeland was baseless. Mr. Gandhi's main arguments were all Indians are one nation, and because Muslims are only converts. Therefore, demand of separate homeland was baseless. Number two, Congress and the Muslim League should cooperate and achieve independence first. Then a referendum may be held in a Muslim majority provinces to find out if they wish to be separate. Number three, Punjab and Bengal will have to be divided because there are non-Muslim majority districts. And number four, defense and foreign offices should be in control of a central authority. Mr. Jinnah did not agree and pressed upon an independent and sovereign Muslim state. Therefore, the talks failed, but it greatly enhanced the importance of Muslim League Quaidism, be- and Quaidism because Gandhi had been forced to negotiate with Muslim League on an equal footing for the first time. The cabinet mission was sent in March 1946 to find a solution for the handing over power in India. After long negotiations, the mission gave its proposals, which were accepted by Muslim League. Congress accepted it with its own interpretations and later rejected the plan, at which the Muslim League withdrew its acceptance. The cabinet mission failed and went back. Third June plan. Mountbatten, the new viceroy, arrived in March 1947. He raised he realized that the demand for partition cannot be ignored and chalked out the plan for the partition of the subcontinent. After getting it approved by the British government, Mountbatten announced the partition of India on 3rd June 1947. He fixed the date of 15th August 1947, for handing over power, announced the appointment of a boundary commission and the division of assets between Pakistan and India. With the above discussion, it is clear that of all the events mentioned above, the Lahore Resolution was the most important factor that led to the partition of the subcontinent. The resolution formed the basis of later decisions and emerged as the only proper solution for the political problem of India after the departure of the British. In which city was an assassination attempt made on Ayub Khan in 1968? Peshawar. What what name was given unto the Jebel Bengali military force in 1971? Bukti Bahini. Which part of the Karakoram Highway was reopened in 1978? The Silk Route. What value was placed on the goods? What value was placed on the goods and commodities exchanged between Pakistan and Bangladesh in 1986? $40 million. Why was Pakistan supported? Why has Pakistan supported the Palestinian cause? B. Pakistan has been supporting the cause of Palestine and Palestine people for three main reasons. One, bond of Islamic Brotherhood. Number two, support of right of self-determination of suppressed nations. Number three, Pakistan is opposed to the creation of a Jewish state of Israel. Even before partition, Muslims of the subcontinent had supported the cause of Palestine and had rendered political, moral, and material support of them to them. The spirit of Islamic Brotherhood continued even after partition. The torching of Al-Aqsa Mosque in 1969 by Jews added fuel to the fire. Secondly, one of the cornerstones of Pakistan's foreign policy was the support of suppressed nations. Pakistan has always been against oppression, colonialization, colonialism, discrimination, and has supported the right of self-determination of every nation. Pakistan has always condemned Israel and supported the Palestinians on all international forums. And thirdly, Pakistan has not recognized Israel ever since the emergence of Israel state in 1948. Pakistan has opposed the unjust and unfair policy of Western powers who arranged and supported the settlement of Jews from all parts of the world or unlawfully occupied Arab lands. Islamic reforms were the most important of Ziaul Haq's domestic policies between 1977 and 1988. Do you agree? I give reasons for your answer. Ziaul Haq's domestic policies and reforms can be mentioned under three headings. These are Islamic reforms, number two, political and administrative policies, number three, economic policies. Islamic reforms Ziaulak had a strict regime and introduced Islamic laws called Hudud Ordinance. It included punishment by imprisonment and preparation and sale and a use of liquor. Sorry. Um, it included punishment by uh, im- punishment by imprisonment for preparation, sale, and use of liquor. Amputation of hand was the punishment for theft or stealing. For adultery, the punishment was stoning to death. False allegation, qazf, was also a punishable crime. Secondly, Zakat and Usher ordinance was enforced in 1980 for collection and distribution of zakat to poor and needy. Thirdly, interest-free handling was enforced in 1981. Fourthly, Federal Sharia Code and Council of Islamic Ideology were set up to Islamize the society. Teaching of Islamiyat and Pakistan studies were taught up to postgraduate level and for professional examination. But these reforms were not successful because they could not be implemented. No Islamic punishment was awarded. Interest-free banking system has been only a paper exercise because there is no real change in the banking system. The Zakat system is continuing with many loopholes in its collection and distribution. Political and administrative policies. Ziaul Haq and disbanded the FSF, Federal Security Force, which was introduced by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in order to suppress political opponents. In Balochistan, peace prevailed after Ziaul Haq declared amnesty to those who gave up arms. Several development schemes were taken up. Power of courts was curtailed, and they were stopped from giving decisions on constitutional matters. When a Supreme Court and High Court judges protested and they were replaced, military officers were inducted into civil services. Zia had promised elections within 90 days, but elections were postponed under the pretext of accountability. In 1981, he created a nominated assembly called Majlis Shura with limited powers. Most of these steps lacked public support because they were unlawful. On political side, Zia held a mock referendum which allowed him to continue as president for another 5 years. However, under public pressure, elections on a non-party basis were held under 1973 Constitution after enforcing Eighth Amendment which gave Zia wide powers. His political policies lacked public support. Domestic process was halted and bureaucracy became stronger. Economic policies. On economic side, Asia denationalized the industries and assured the investors of no further nationalization. As a result, industrialization picked up slowly. Many state-owned units showed progress. Interest-free loans were granted to farmers to help agriculture.